Welcome back, everyone. For today's video, we're going to see the Slav Defense, a very solid opening to play for black. So you're going to see these three pawns here. How do we get here? First off, this is the main line. They play d4, you play d5. And many are going to go for the Queen's Gambit, c4. Here we can take. We can also choose to protect with e6. But in the Slav Defense, we protect with the c-pawn, c6. Right? If they take, we take back. I'm going to show you this later. But in many cases, they are not going to take back. So what are the ideas if this happens? The main line, knight f3. Okay, makes sense. Now we're going to go knight f6. You see something symmetrical. And now the other knight. Okay, once we have the three knights on the board, what are the ideas for black? Simple. So we have developed the knight, we develop the bishop, we play e6, and then develop the other bishop to this square. That is the Slav Defense, but I'm going to show you what not to do and what you can do. Okay, in this scenario, we can actually take this pawn. We take the pawn, and then you play a4 as to avoid b5. Right? They don't want to see b5 happening because they want to recover the pawn right away. Now bishop to f5, e3. They will recover here. It's completely fine. Let it happen. Now we develop the bishop as we mentioned to b4, castle, castle, knight to h4. This is a common idea against the Slav Defense. You can even let it happen. You can always go back. But there is no problem if you develop the other knight. Knight b to d7, knight takes on f5, we take back, h3, computer line, then g6, also computer line, then queen b3, queen b6, you keep an eye on the bishop, bishop to d2, and a5. You can later now retreat, move the queen somewhere, and the game continues. What not to do? And if you notice here, both players are on this side of the board. I'm going to go backwards a little bit. So here we put the bishop up on f5. Something you want to avoid is still playable. You can put the bishop on g4, hitting this knight. But I would not recommend it, as you get hit with a lot of tempos. So he can play knight to e5, hitting the bishop. And then you have to move the bishop, then f3, preparing for g4, and it's painful. It's not that easy to play, right? Then this is the computer line, by the way, bishop to g5, f3, knight to d5, that's what the engine recommends. Then e4, and you have to move the knight again, knight to b4, knight takes on e4, and c4, sorry. And then what is this bishop doing here? I mean, it's not so bad, but the knight's here, and you have not developed the the knight or the bishop. I would not recommend that line. I just go safe and play bishop to f5. All right, let's see the other lines. Next up, we have a line where white avoids too much theory. But first, something I would not recommend to do, don't take this pawn right away. So when to take the pawn, you develop your knight, they develop the knight, and here you can take. But before that happens, you should not take this pawn. Why? Because to keep it alive is to give up too much advantage and too much initiative. For example, this is computer line, e3. They can take the pawn now, so you want to protect it with b5. You can get a4. They undermine this pawn structure right away. So now e6 to develop the bishop, a takes on b5. So here, if you take back, they can challenge the pawn structure again with b3. So if you take, now they can take back with check, and you protect. They take back the pawn. So we have given up all the advantage and initiative, especially on this side of the board, right? Bishop, queen, the other bishop might be out soon for nothing. So don't take that pawn. Okay, so what is the line? Main line is to play this, knight to c3. But if they want to avoid theory, they play e3. It's perfectly okay. Now, you develop your bishop to f5, knight to c3, e6. We have similar ideas, right? We want to develop the bishop later, develop the knight. And this is a common move we saw in the previous line, knight to g4, h4, sorry. Hitting the bishop. Here you actually want to retreat. And if you look at the pawn structure, we actually want them to take. We have all these pawns on the light squares. Do we really need this bishop? Yeah, we can allow this to happen. Okay, and now we have an open file for the rook. Semi-open file. Queen b3. We can offer the trade of queens. And now we also have a good position and two semi-open files for the rooks. So it's completely fine for both, I think for both sides, but I would prefer to play for black in this position. Now let's check out the exchange variation. Probably the simplest way to play against the Slav defense is once we get this pawn structure, knight to f6, they can take this pawn and we take it back. That is the exchange variation, right? Knight to c3, knight to c6, 4 knights are out. Now bishop to f4 is the most accurate move, and I bet you anything, a lot of players are going to go for this, bishop to g5. Now in this case, you can go for kind of tricks. You can win a tempo on the bishop by playing knight to e4. So now they have to move the bishop, right? They have to go here, and you can even go for f6, maybe later e5, and the game gets really sharp. The other idea is, what if they take here? They cannot take because you win a tempo now on the knight, and if they put it on e5, okay, you can just take, sorry, you can actually take this pawn. And yeah, why would they lose a pawn for no reason? They kind of have to take back, takes, and yeah, we are threatening this. They're completely lost. We're also threatening this. Yeah, they shouldn't play bishop to g5. Instead, go for the solid option, bishop to f4. Okay. Now we get the bishop out. They can target this pawn with the queen. We can offer this exchange of queens. That's one line. And so here, I'm going to show you first that line. Queen to b6. We take. Then knight to b5. We have to keep an eye on this square. We don't want to see a check there. Rook to c8. Rook to c1. e6. e3. Bishop to b4, given a check. So the game is good. Now, what is the other option instead of, I'm going to go backwards a little bit. We can also avoid the trade of queens by playing knight to f5. Yeah, and here it's like, oh, wait, they give a check. Yeah, but nothing is hanging. You still keep an eye on the knight. You can come back. Now the queen has to move. You get to the rook to c8. As you can see, the rook belongs to this file, and any other opening where the c pawn has been traded, right? Then rook to c8, e3, e6. The game continues, bishop to d3. You can also throw at different points this move, knight to h5, hitting the bishop. So yeah, something to consider for you later. Bishop to d3, bishop to e7, castle, castle, knight to e5. And here you want to fill in the blanks. And in many games of chess, you're going to see something like this. Right here, you can retreat the bishop. You still want to keep the bishop on the board. But yeah, everything is good. And it's very solid for black. Last but not least, in this channel, we emphasize the geometry of chess. So we cannot fail to mention the triangle system. Right, d4, d5, we're gonna get our system, right? The 3 pawns are here and the knight. In this case, we can also play e6, and we have our triangle, right? There is different responses to this. Then they can play e3. By the way, they can also try to develop this bishop to f4. Sorry, I wanna show you that line. because here we can actually take this pawn and there isn't a lot of compensation. I think they're just giving up the pawn without having to compensate. So computer line, knight f6, knight to d5. And if they don't move this bishop, we can also take. And what is the counter play? Is white actually playing for a win? No, it's really obvious, right? So the game will continue. So yeah, something about this move, bishop to f4, where we can take the pawn. Okay, meanwhile, you don't want to take the pawn now, right? They're keeping an eye on the bishop. But they're keeping an eye with the bishop. Sorry, my mind is going nuts. We develop the knight. The only problem with this triangle system is we have to waste the tempo later with c5. It's kind of the only problem. Now, they get the knight out. We do the same thing. Bishop to d3, bishop to e7, castle, castle, b3. Okay, and now we waste this tempo, c5. So it was like, wait, why didn't we play c5 from the start? Yeah, that's the only problem with this opening. Other than that, we still have a very solid structure. Bishop to b2, b6. Now we want to cheat the bishop to b7, and the game goes on. Everything is good for both sides. Okay, guys, thanks for watching. I hope you liked this video. I want you to fill in the gaps in how to play the middle game and the end game with the Slav Defense, but it's extremely solid. Please check out my exclusive content for only $1, and I will see you in the next one. Take care.